What, me?
Well, obviously you. How many Dans live in your mum's spare room?
You'd be surprised. How can you hear my thoughts?
Because I'm otherworldly. And it's easier than recording the sound live.
Well, what do you want from me, ugly book?
I want you to draw... Ugly? Do you say that to everyone who's not ugly?
You are.
Well, you ain't winning no beauty contests, are you? Anyway, I've come from the otherworldly place. Not hell, but it's like hell. And I want you to draw a monster that lives within my pages.
Oh, lives within your page? Do you mean the drawing that I did a few days ago? That one? Are you taking credit for that?
Look, I'm really losing patience with you here. I'm from another world, right? You want paper cuts? Just make the bloody thing.
What a dick. Right, so looking at this thing, it has lots of eyes, pipe type things on the back, a human mouth minus the lips, and lots of crawly spider type legs. And for some reason it's called Mr. Peeps, which I think is a Binding of Isaac character, so we're going to change that to Bog Eyes.
Get to work, you layabout.
Hey! Hello, welcome to another episode of Dan Does, where I'm making a monster, surprise surprise, and we start every monster with an armature, which is a wire in a shape of something that you then add, well in this case tin foil, to make a giant spoon. And if you're not happy with the shape of your spoon, you make a different spoon. Next, throw a roll of masking tape at the spoon and hope that in the edit it will magically be covered in masking tape. Huzzah! And that's the base, ready for a bit of super sculpty medium firm. I'm going to cut to ribbons with my sling blade. That impression is getting worse every episode. And of course I have attached the clay to the base with Super Sculpey Bake and Bond. Not Bacon Bond, Bake and Bond. Now although I have a design for this monster, I am winging a lot of it. Like this base for example is just like a pile of grapes. Much like a hemorrhoid. Very much body horror. Real life body horror, I'm sure. I mean, not from experience. Next, I'm using a homemade texture tool, which is basically a bit of clay, texturized and then baked onto the end of it, a broken paintbrush. And I'm going to be doing this after every step pretty much, texturing everything because I don't know what will be showing at the end. I'm adding 2 little balls of clay here around the waist. These are arm stumps. It will make sense right at the end. And much like the texture tool, I use all sorts of things to give this thing texture and creases and whatnot. Everything a growing monster needs. And this monster has decided it would like to wear a skirt, which is absolutely its prerogative. So I've given it a skirt at the back there. And using a ball stick, I'm going to add a bit of fleshy texture to it. A lot of these steps are going to get repeated throughout the episode, so when we get to those stages, we'll just have a lovely chat, you and I. Now don't worry, it sounds like you're in trouble. You know, it's the kind of thing your dad would say if you'd smashed a vase, or a vase, depending on where you're from. But no, I just generally want to catch up, as I've been away for a few weeks, unwell, and hoping to get back on that train. The YouTube gravy train. As per design, I'm adding some pipey things on the back of this monster. It kind of looks like coral, but it's nice to add a bit of detail in the boring spaces. I mean, you could just leave this back bare, but you know, never neglect the back. Don't neglect the back. Speaking of which, I'm giving this thing a spine, starting with a line of bacon bond, and then a big old sausage of clay. Blended in lovely and sensuously with my finger and thumb. And once that's done, you'll know it's done right when you caress it and it purrs. Like so. This answers the question, are you a cat or dog person? Clearly I'm a disgusting body/cosmic horror monster person. Here is a regiment of sausages ready to be applied to the spine to make ribs. But on the back. We do have ribs on the back, don't we? Not just on the front. Nobody ever mentions the back ribs. Well, they kind of go all the way around, if my cartoon skeleton knowledge is anything to go by. I'd estimate that about 80% of my viewers are doctors, so I will get comments regarding ribs, no doubt. Thank you for your service. Now, this baby definitely does have back, and when I say back, I mean back fat. Much like your average 39-year-old male. And the point of this is also to add a lip around the front, which will become clear as to why later on. This build is getting a little too sexual. Still working on the back, but also integrating the back with the front, because where would we be without the front? There would not be a back. Science. So I'm going to add some ribs that lead around to the front, and these will act as claw type things, and also add more detail to the back. Now look at that, that is a lovely back, and if I've said it once, I've said it 4 times.
Don't neglect the back. Don't neglect the back.
My thirst for jingles has not been quenched. I'm sure there will be more. Now I'm going to add a hood type thing. Lid. Lip. On the top of this thing's head. Very hard describing the anatomy of something that isn't anatomically correct. Now this is Cernit. Translucent clay. And there's a big old packet, and I'm using this to make some claws. Here's a whole lineup of claws. Do you recognise any of these claws, madam? Sticking these claws into each of its stubs, and it's at this point that I realise that I'm not sure. Alexa, do you mind? Anyway, it's at this point that I realise this looks an awfully lot like the sculpture from Beetlejuice. Come at me, Burton. Anyway, here's a sausage, and I'm going to use this to make a lip all the way around the monster's front. Now the purpose of this lip is to create 2 separate pieces. There is a skin on the back of a fleshy, gory front. So the lip has gone all the way around the claws at the front, and down the bottom of the skirt. It'll all become clear, and I've textured it all up and everything else. Thank you, Wilhelm. This is some translucent red Fimo effect clay. The effect is that it's semi-translucent, and I'm going to use this to fill in the front of the monster inside the lip. This is what the lip was for, to contain all the red translucent loveliness, which will be the face of this creature. Taking a medium-sized ball stick, I'm going to texturize this mother. And it looks like the roof of your mouth. Looks nice. Almost looks like gum. But don't eat it. And to make it extra smooth, I've rubbed it down with a bit of isopropyl alcohol, which I've done pretty much every step, but just have neglected to mention so far. Next, I'm making, if you remember the design, the area for the mouth, which is at the top of the monster, which will be above the eyes, which makes it weird. Right? I'm using this imp spatula to carve out the mouth for this monster, and the expression I'm going for is minor depression masked with indifference. I know it all too well. Here's a ball of the Cernit translucent clay. I'm going to use this to make tiny teeth in my fancy new grey ceramic pot, where you can actually see the teeth this time, not like the white thing I used to use. So I'm going to get these, make spares. Molar deserves a snack, and get these things baked. Can never have too many teeth, unless you're Janet Street Porter. It's time to take out your...
Yeah.
Yep, Jingles appears to be my new thing. Take the archive and we're going to cut these teeth in half so we've got a flat edge. But not that one, that one's gone forever. It was a good one as well. With a teeny tiny ball stick, make a little hole, and then with the sharp end of the tooth and some tweezers, poke it in. And it looks even better when you play this clip in reverse.
Oh, hi.
Right, Dan has summoned me to thank the patrons, for which, if it were not for you, he could not afford things such as invisible fishing line. For whatever reason he might need that, I've no idea. Anyway, this is for the do-betters tier. Thank you very much to Gemma Ingram, Country Fried Minis, Dave Birdsall, Ed Trotts, Isabel, Jake Langford, and Shite Hawk. And now the do-gooder tier. Thank you, Andy Scott, Anthony Roberts, Barry the Caterpillar, Benedict Miller, Brando B, Cathal Grant, Chris Gilliard, Dan Pennycate, Demon Mittenhands, Gert Gervins, Goat Harasser, Carl Deakin, Krista, Larry, Mike Pitt, Positive Poppet, Rabies of Lard, Rich Miles, Richard Davidson, Stuart Ashen, Want Pants 2, and Zoltan. And also thank you to the rest of you in the Doers tier. I have it on good authority that he loves each and every one of you. Thank you very much for keeping him fed. The link to the Patreon is in the info. Thank you. Bye.
Now look at you. Aren't you glad Mummy and Daddy paid for those braces all those years ago? Yes, it was tough. Yes, you had a hard time in secondary school. High school to the Americans. But it's worth... Look at the smile, yeah. $1 million smile you've got there. Did you thank your mummy and daddy for the braces? I bet you didn't. Give them a call. Go on, off you go. Give them a phone call now. Using the same Cernit translucent clay from earlier, I made approximately 45 tiny balls. I'm going to use these for eyes, for the many-eyed monster. But before I attach all of these to the monster's front, I need to take out the tiny pin vise and drill just a few millimeters in with the fattest drill bit I have. Just a few millimeters into the front of each of these balls. The reasoning will become clear as there's a bit of a running theme, but you'll see why later on. With a little blob of the red translucent clay and a little drip of the bacon bond. I press the eyes in, making sure that the drilled hollow is facing outwards and in whatever direction I want the eye to face, which ends up being everywhere by the end. Making sure to blend all the little lumps of red clay in with the ball stick, so it looks lovely and gummy. And I did this 45 times, and in the hope of earning enough in ad revenue to buy a quarter pounder this month, we will watch each eye as they are placed. Enjoy. No, not really. In fact, here's a couple of cuts and we're done. All of that work, hours and hours of work, over in a matter of seconds for you, the viewers on YouTube. You're welcome. Now, the red translucent clay ends up a lot redder when it's baked, I discovered, which isn't bad, it's fine. I'm going to make some more claws now, off camera. These are already baked, pre-baked. Saving, you're all busy people, we're saving your time here. Here'll be some armature wire. Gonna pull this as tightly as possible to get it as straight as possible, and snip some bits off, and we're going to use this to make legs. Spider / lobster crab type legs. That's what the claws are for. Using a narrow devil beak, gonna bend some angles here. Use the tool and bend against it. Don't try and do this by hand, it never works out as neat as you'd like. And then I'm covering these bits of wire with cos clay so they can bend. Cos clay is flexible when baked, if you haven't already heard. And then sticking the little claw in at the end, using some bacon bond to make sure it stays firmly in place. And once these are all made, I made probably 2,000 of them, I've laid them all out to spell a word in the Utja language. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's the language of the predators. Loosely translated, flaccid. It's time to be drilling some holes. So let's be drilling some holes. And then attach every one of these horrific spider legs in a stop motion montage. I'm being very matter of fact. I don't know why. I'll tell you the truth, I've just had a bath in between narrating this part and the last part. I'm feeling a bit relaxed. These are 2 extra limbs. These are arms because they have an extra joint. These are going in the little stubby nubby bits that I made right at the beginning. Full circle. Not really. Right, we're on to the painting stage now. And my god, there's a lot of eyes to paint. Starting with a dark tan, painting all of the irises. All 45 of them. Careful not to go outside of the indent we made earlier with the pin vise. And then, eventually, we use a bright yellow, painting the irises again, but not going to the edge, leaving a dark edge. It doesn't have to be too detailed because they're very small, but it really does make a difference if you leave that dark edge. You really do need a steady hand for this stage, and even more so with the next, which will be, yes, you guessed it, the pupil. This is not a recommended technique for those who suffer from huge amounts of guilt, because your hands will shake, as mine often do. People often ask, why do your videos take so long to come out? Nobody's ever asked that, by the way. You're lovely, actually. But this is the reason, if you were to ask that hypothetical question. Here's your hypothetical answer. Except it's not hypothetical. The answer, at least. Just the question. Anyway, this is a wooden skewer thing. Basically a giant cocktail stick. I'm going to use this for the pupils. The point there. There's no point using a brush. Brushes are temperamental, let's be honest. They do what they like. But assuming your aim is right, a skewer will hit your target every time. And out comes the skewer's miniature cousin, the cocktail stick, using this to apply careful drops of UV resin to the lens, to make a lens for the eyes. Each eye, 45 lenses. And as soon as the drop goes in, the UV torch comes out, because we don't want that dripping, and we want it to pull up into a bump, like a lens. And look at that baby catching the light. I mean, I'm impressed. Now, I know this has been very wordy, this section's because I'm quite passionate about these tiny eyes. Very happy with them. The rest of this is just basic painting. So Lord knows the chat is going to meander from henceforth. My, what pretty eyes you have. I'm actually very happy with these eyes. Look at them twinkling. Now, if you are a regular on this channel, if you've watched a few of my videos, you've probably noticed that all of my monsters end up being pink or flesh coloured or red or purple, you know, sort of that range of colours. So I attempted to try something different this time and use a greeny beige type. It was almost a vomit colour, honestly. But as you'll see, it ends up looking the same as the rest. I'm really trying here. Next time I'm just going to have to go luminous green or something. But, that being said, these are from the same universe. Now, I had an idea the other day of what kind of universe these creatures are going to come from, and I think I'm going to explore that in the next video. So if you'd like to find out what universe these monsters have come from, then why not subscribe? Or like and subscribe, as we like to say here. Like, comment, subscribe, all one word, to save time. But every time I say like, comment, subscribe afterwards anyway, so screw it, I'll make a jingle.
Why don't you hit that like and subscribe? Why don't you hit that like and subscribe?
I haven't met a problem yet that can't be solved with jingles. Anyway, back to the painting. I'm using a mix of red ink and brown wash, I believe, to darken these eyes a bit, to give them a bit of a bloody ring around them. Like they've been swimming too long with no goggles on, and there's far too much chlorine in the pool. And adding a watered down pink trim, I think it's Old Rose is the colour I'm using, along the edges and on the top of those little pipes. I'm not sure what the pipes are for, but they're there now, so we're just going to have to live with it. Now, I've discovered with large sculpts as opposed to miniatures is that you don't need to paint them as well as miniatures, because the light catches these large models better than it would a miniature. And if you think about it, real life things don't have edge highlighting, do they? I understand that miniatures are a completely different painting style. All I'm saying is that these sculpts are easier, thank God. I've taken a little sponge just to dab some dark brown on its back to give it some imperfections. You can't really go wrong. Go crazy. And once that's done, I've decided to paint over the translucent claws with a brown, which I'm then going to paint over the top with black, much like a deer horn or an antler, that kind of thing, leaving gaps so it looks like it's chipped, so you can see the brown underneath. Trying something a little different. I'm rather happy with those, and just to finish them off, a little Vallejo gloss varnish. I figured that UV resin would be too shiny for the horns. And, speaking of which, UV resin is what I cover the rest of the inside of this monster's face with. But you can see that in the showcase that is coming up now. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I do have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. There's bits on there, like normal. Like and subscribe. Thank you.